So here at 3 Radical, we deploy gamification through our customer engagement platform. We support clients through all stages of the customer journey. When we talk about gamification, we obviously don't just think in terms of prizes, Wheel of Fortune, things you see on a sort of daily retention mechanics. To us, gamification is making journeys that you can take your customer through and engage, reward, personalize, and basically continually learn and adapt in everything we do. So today I want to focus, as you mentioned, it was a bit of a mouthful, on experiential personalization in gamification. What is it? Difficulties brands can have in personalization, why it's important in today's markets, and how we've used it, a few use cases in where we've engaged, delighted, and earned data with our clients. So what is it? In simple terms, it's about creating a customized experience with your brand, hence experiential, and tailoring that to the individual, hence personalization. Key thing to this is doing it in the moment. We're very conscious these days, and you'll hear me talk about it a bit later, how decline of cookies and things, and how people collect data, that you often look to the past rather than the moment in terms of communicating with people. And obviously we want to try and change that attitude and talk to people in the moment, and look to maximize their potential going forward. Obviously it means not addressing them by name in an email or just reminding them what they bought last week. That no longer passes. So why are brands finding it hard? We've done sort of various research on this recently, and our common theme across all of this is relevancy. Messages sent are still promoting standardized offers across all audiences. We probably all received this week something saying 10% off, just come to our site, please. Consumers don't see relevancy in this, and they also get so many of these messages that they're losing sight of the ones that are relevant. So they're asking the question, why did I sign up? Why am I sharing my data with you? There's no trust there. I mentioned, cookies no longer really the answer, especially going forward with all the restrictions that are coming into place. So brands need to stop looking to the past and drive their actions in the content and the experiences and the journeys they take people through, and engage with people kind of in the moment to maximize their potential. Consumers are fairly savvy now. They know their data is valuable. We tell them their data is valuable. So we must show sort of true value exchange is a term I use a lot whenever somebody sort of says, I want to gather some data. It's like, okay, what's the value exchange? What's the trust that you'll impart with your customer? In order to share this data with us, building that trust with a brand is the only way that we're going to continually build on our sort of data universes going forward. We've also got the approach of maintaining attention. We've all heard case studies recently, I'm sure, of people's attention spans are much shorter these days. Mobile phones, there's always something saying, hey, people have got a 3-minute read time, etc. McKinsey's studies are showing consumers want streamlined services, though. They want interactions with brands to be slick and concise. We must let the user influence not just the marketing they receive, but also support them in quickly navigating to the content that we host in our sites. They're not prepared to spend time just searching and navigating content. It sounds a bit like a bit of a sort of broad sweeping statement, but I actually had an example from an estate agent of all things this week. Basically said first time buyers, they don't want or they will only look at sort of complete show homes. They don't want to look at the future potential. It's in the moment. It has to be done. It has to be ready now. And it's just changing in every market. So personalization matters. It needs to be across the full user journey. Oh, sorry. There we go. It needs to be across the full user journey and every touch point you make. The moment you become generic, it's irrelevant to people. They want to know you're speaking to them. Keeping that attention is what's going to drive conversion. When I talk about conversion, it's not just a sort of sales revenue conversion, it's any kind of conversion, any action that you'd like people to take. So gathering opt-ins, location, household size, anything you're going to kind of use. We need to understand the motivation and intent of our consumers so we can truly personalize an experience in the moment. So, getting personalization wrong, and this is, bear with me, this is a valid example from my own sort of experience recently. Serving consumers digital ads for coats, in my example, was my daughter's coat. Because I'd recently looked at coats, just is that personal enough? So the perfect girl's yellow puffer coat that my daughter had to have for school, I didn't ask any questions. I did the usual parent thing of going, okay, I'll find you a perfect yellow coat. Search history, online ads, inbox, everything has been filled with yellow puffer coats. But the amount of those ads and those links that I would click on that wouldn't actually take me to the perfect yellow puffer coat is unbelievable. And the best one was when I got taken to the nice lime green jacket in women's clothing. If I'd have bought that, I really don't think it'd have gone down well. I'm missing that personalization point to shorten my journey to conversion, to get me the product I want. It sounds simple, but as I've just shown, many sites aren't doing this. The immediate relevance of a message to drive conversion in the moment rather than losing momentum in that by offering up a generic welcome, a generic offer that then leads me to having to navigate again around a site. We're just missing opportunities. The ad for that perfect girl's yellow puffer coat that I keep coming back to, you'll be sick of coats after this. It should take me at least to the right category, if not the right product. And when I've completed that purchase, as I obviously did as a good parent at that point, where was the opportunity to then say, was this something, especially in a category like children's clothing? Why was I shopping today? Was it for me? Probably not, especially as I was using a credit card to pay. So ask me the questions. We're always open to constantly learning, rather than assuming knowledge. And this sets us up for our next action. Nothing could be better in this case because I did go to that same site. But this time, lockdown's not been kind. I need a new suit, summer wedding's coming up. But I was still getting all around the web being followed by emails and pop-up ads for yellow puffer coats. Did you kind of start to say, introduce that concierge service, that hand-holding of a customer through your site, through your content? It's quite simple to say, introduce a basic journey. Hello, welcome back. How can we help you today? And in this case, it would have been brilliant because actually what I want is men's clothing and I want to go, to suits, and we can introduce these simple pop-ups. It feels like it's oversimplified sometimes in that, well, there are navigation points on a page, but just this simple opportunity of a handout to the customer, a welcome pop-up and asking what they want today. The conversion on those versus just letting them organically navigate around a site, we're seeing much better conversion to the end of the funnel, and it's just simply by asking me what I want. So, adaptive gamification solutions in action, another mouthful of a slide, but here I just want to kick off with a few examples. About how you gather data through a variety of journeys. I've got kind of 3 use cases. Some have got traditional game type science in, game functions. Others are this more concierge style of a handout, asking users to interact and to tell us what they want in the moment. It's also worth noting, none of these sort of use cases that I demonstrate actually require site redesigns or web development of any kind. Our platform is the engine that's kind of driving and hosting the content, and it's just making it easier for marketing teams to deploy and update and test and learn. That's a sales bit. I'll move on from there. So looking at earned data, working with one of the US, sort of one of the largest craft retailers. Their aim was to reactivate and learn from their sort of lapsing audience. They had hundreds of thousands of emails that were due to effectively drop out of their system. They hadn't engaged in almost a year. They were emailing these people at some points twice a day with no response. So this craft company, they chose to deploy holiday-themed activities. And it was across their site. So the campaign would start with a reactivation email, got in some test and learn subject lines around seasonal promotions, but also, tell us about you. Is that earned data? Is that opportunity to sort of engage and ask questions attractive to people? This leads to the opening kind of survey, just some simple 5-question statements. And using that, we could then tailor the next 7 days of content they would see on the site. This would range from where's Wally style game, how to make videos, fun quizzes, all tailored to the preferred craft that they would have raised on that first or told us about on that first interaction. So if you told us you like knitting, you'd get a week of knitting experiences, content. But it wasn't just that level. We'd also ask, are you an expert or an amateur? An expert probably doesn't want a knitting pattern for a scarf. And likewise, if you're into painting and you were selling your paintings on Etsy or something, then you don't want a painting by numbers kit. So it's always about developing and adapting the journeys based on what people would tell us. To see this new content each day, though, they kind of pushed that earned data experience to the max, in that you had to answer another question every day. And it was all about the immediacy. These people were about to lose them. We've reactivated them. They've engaged. They've clicked in the content. So gamification has worked in that sense. But now, in that moment, we want to capture as much as we can about them. Yes, there were discounts across the promotion. So we would try the come back 40% off as ordered, and obviously that's a strong message. But we know that also, first and foremost, it was about re-engaging lapsed people back to the site. This is a brand that if you can get them to visit, get them engaged and see the products, then that engagement is going to ultimately drive the revenue. Sorry. So the buzz we created using that gamification, we saw over 80,000 people would re-engage with their email program. That's a large number of data points, 2,500 data points, and more than 30% more data had ever been collected before. And as I say, getting those people to re-engage and be part of their active audience again, the potential revenue from those people was huge. So the second kind of use case I just wanted to talk to is about not treating everyone the same. So a little bit like we just talked to, but in this scenario, it was an alternative learning program provider, or basically another sort of higher education school. But it was for people who had fallen out of education, and lots of them, troubled past. They'd been asked to leave their school, or certain life events had caused issues for them. So again, quite difficult audiences to talk to. But in this sense, there was a certain element that we knew there were two clear audiences that we could talk to. You were going to have students and you were going to have parents. So in this situation, we took that kind of concierge approach that I spoke to, and it was that handout. Tell us, are you a parent or a student? And from that point, we could offer up on a plate what was relevant to them, just from that one click. It was curated content that generally existed on their site. And with a lot of these experiences, we're not necessarily saying you have to spend a lot of time and effort building new content. It's sometimes just about putting it in the right place and in the right funnel for people to walk through. So our client in this case, they kind of knew the key considerations that prospects might have when choosing a school. So we went on to develop what we call mini journey maps that were based on those considerations and would help chaperone the people through to the right content at that moment. So for an example, students, like I said, they were maybe not had the best past and experience with education so far. So for them, it was, would I be accepted? Is this the right fit for me? And the alternative was a parent. Now, a parent looking on the site, hoping to sort of encourage their child to go back to education, has already decided their child needs deserves a second chance, and rightly so. So for them, it was more about pass rates and opportunities, and it was by sort of separating out that content and journey, and just by, like I say, one click, putting it together, making it a journey, letting people walk through. We were getting the completion of that sort of consumption of that content was far higher than we'd ever tracked of people organically navigating around a site on their own. As we kind of got to the end of showing people the relevant content to them, there's a final step of asking how would they like to move forward, and again, based on that, we're able to tailor the next kind of experiences they see. And historically it might have been just enroll now. For a lot of people, that's a big leap. We're able to soften that call to action, inquiry, call back, keep me updated. And many of these features, as I said, would have existed on the site before, but the users just weren't finding it. They weren't navigating around. They're just kind of clicking and seeing the first thing they saw on a homepage. It was enroll, and it just actually was more of a barrier to consuming the information than it was an encouraging thing for people to start. As I say, hundreds of percent, 500%, more engagement across the site. The conversion to enrollment 200% better, and decreasing bounce. People were staying on the site, and which is a great outcome for that particular school and the programs that they offer. So just the last one I'll come to now is just being adaptive. So we worked with a kind of global pet retailer, and as we talk through these slides, I've always talked to personalizing touch points with consumers, and this basically kicked off on that very sort of point. Using email invites, journeys could be split. So we knew something about some people, but the majority they knew nothing about. They had very little actual accurate data on their people. So it's Christmas time. For them, we thought, get into the Christmas spirit, gamify a bit of an Advent themed calendar, and all you had to do was kind of register with you and your pet. So in registering your pet, quickly 0.1 of data captured, and we were able to, from that point, give them immediate personalization. So again, it's that trust of I've asked for some information, and look, I've used it, I've made it relevant to you from that real-time interaction. And it's building that trust from that first point. With the content then personalized for cat, dog, and or potentially owners of both, we have kind of 3 categories. People were invited to repeatedly come back over the course of the next 12 days. On each occasion, they were able to open a calendar door to reveal a reward. Probably not the chocolate that they were stealing from their kids' calendars downstairs, but it gave the brand an opportunity to test with their audiences responsiveness to different types of and concepts of rewards. Yes, we did prize draw entries and product discounts, as you kind of would expect. That is often that first sort of gateway hook for people, but also the pet hints and tips, video content. It's seasonal. It's keep your pets safe when there are fireworks about. There were little quizzes about what table decorations are safe for your dog to chew. Apparently, holly is exceptionally poisonous for dogs. But it was just little fun things. So it wasn't all about kind of come and spend more money with us. The non-discount information proved just as engaging for consumers. We were really pleased with how well it picked up. In fact, the only one that didn't work well was a note about a national vet program. But I guess pet owners just love their pets and probably covered already for that. So the additional element of surprise and delight was also baked in, that the usual gamification rules, that randomly we were able to incentivize people to say, come back on this specific day and there's a prize draw, and that was very much randomized and pop up, and nobody knew who was going to win when, and you might get six months worth of pet food, for example. Great stats. I think people saw a couple of comments there coming in as I was talking, that the 3 times higher click-through rates from emails to gamification, and I think a lot of people on this will be seeing those kind of stats from gamification experiences. The audience who actually started on any one day, over 60% went through to complete 12 days of content, and this is a brand, a pet food brand. People don't visit that site every day. There might be 1 or 2 times where they've got a new pet and they're researching, or they need to change their food or something, but it's not a site you'd be visiting daily. This is 12 days. They're visiting constantly during that period. And also then the click through to the experience. So yes, it's great, they're engaging with a fun promotion for that period, those 12 days periods, but we saw people going through deeper into the brand site. And like I say, this is that sort of typical brand where that kind of conversion is a real struggle. So I'm going to end there. I mean, hopefully that's a bit of interest to people. And if there's any questions, I saw various bits coming up just on the side. So happy to take any questions now.
Cool. Thank you very much, Steve. As Pete said, some very interesting stats and good stuff going on there. We have one question already from Adam Hazler. I'll bring it up on screen. So, do you have any data on the long-term impact of these programs to metrics like customer lifetime value, for example, with the arts and crafts company?
So, I mean, yes, obviously there's certain commercials there, but they had a certain lifetime or engaged value that they assigned to a customer. So hence, you saw some quite big numbers on the what we call the potential value there of retaining a customer. And because these were all people who basically hadn't engaged and lapsed, those we've kind of targeted programs with the hardest audiences at first. So it's a stretch spend, but yes, the lifetime value is very much part of the kind of activity we deliver, and the revenues that are baked into the KPIs there. So 400,000 from 80 odd thousand people who moved from basically inactive to active.
Okay, thanks. I have some things I'd also like to ask, if that's cool. Sort of one of your first examples, sort of with your yellow coat and the ads showing up, and spoke to me a little bit in terms of you're looking for something and then you get bombarded with the ads afterwards. Even after you've bought the thing, you still get the ads coming through. And I was sort of wondering on your take in terms of with the whole creating a personalized experience and making sure that it's targeting your customer correctly. Where is sort of and it sort of links into the later point of the voluntary data entry thing versus the data capture. So where's the line between personalization and what some people could perceive as an invasion of privacy in terms of how customized and personalized something becomes?
Yeah, I think that's where I use the value exchange term most. In that, if you are offering the deeply tell me your postcode or tell me your SMS and things like that, we do tend to see that's where you have to do that exchange, and we're finding that kind of progressive data capture is a nice way to go. So you might have your email registration as a kickoff, 10% off. Lots of people are doing that, but then we kind of gamify and say, okay, but do you know what, for another bonus 10% or something, we acknowledge this is not, I don't want to say invasive, but this is extra data. And so, you gamify and you boost and you say, we'll exchange that. The flip side is, like you say, where it's maybe not perceived as giving me data. So when I, present that kind of concierge, how can I help you today? I want suits. Well, we are recording that goes to, whatever CRM, system is being run. but it's not presented as kind of data capture. It's much softer. So to the user, it is that helping hand. But to us, it's really really valuable data. It's the last known interest kind of thing. So we balance it off, and we ultimately, I think we acknowledge that there are certain types of data that people will perceive as personal, and you have to kind of almost say, absolutely, this is personal, but we are prepared to give you something in exchange for that.
Yeah, of course, making sure for that. I think I have time. Anybody else has more questions, please put them in the chat. I have one more. It's sort of with the alternative learning thing and the students and sort of that difficult thing. And as you're sort of discussing that, making sure that it is already sort of personalized before you're starting into that, I was sort of wondering what's sort of the process of figuring out the personalization before you're personalizing everything, so you can get that sort of data.
Yes, I mean, with that particular example, they'd done work and they'd sort of there is the traditional research methods that have to take place, I think. And they'd identified that we know these are the barriers, or we believe these are the barriers for students, and these are the barriers for parents. The whole idea of that kind of self-identifying and then curated journey actually came just from a conversation where they didn't even realize that that's what they'd identified. They kind of talked me through the kind of different content and said, "Oh, we've got there, and if you click here and you click here, we've got all this information." And we said, "Well, why don't you actually say present it?" And it's not a video reel, but it's that kind of slowly step through. But it is very much in hand with those traditional kind of research methods that they had in place beforehand to kind of identify it, and then it's how you work together to curate it.
Excellent, cool. Yeah, I think I've sort of gone through everything I would have liked to ask. I mean, it's definitely a varied number of clients and companies that you work with, so the personalization and the variation becomes very clear through what you've discussed and taken us through today. So thank you very much for that, Steve.